This video has been edited to shorten watch time by removing sidebars, evidence handling, and long pauses. Witness testimony remains intact, with minor cuts to hesitation words and stutters.
Good morning, Ms. Hartnett, and welcome back this morning.
Good morning.
Your Honor, if I could please have Exhibit 145 that is in evidence published.
Yes.
Mr. Wolk. Ms. Hartnett, you will recall discussion about the taillight from the Lexus that was discussed on both direct and cross-examination yesterday?
Yes.
And you recall the discussion with regard to the weather that was in existence on or about January 29th? I'm not going to go into it at all. I just want to sort of refresh and reorient to where we were on that topic. You recall that?
Yes.
And I am now going to reference specifically what you referred to yesterday, I believe, as the inner part of the taillight, sometimes the inside of the taillight. Do I have that parlance correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So my question is, did you find any sand or salt or any other debris in the inside portion of that taillight?
No, I did not.
You recall discussion about shards of taillight? Do you recall that discussion at all in your testimony?
No, I'm sorry, I do not.
Okay. I wasn't certain whether we had that parlance. So my question is, to your knowledge, was there any testing of any taillight alleged to have been found at 34 Fairview for biological material?
No, there was not.
And could you just please state what your definition is inclusion when you refer to biological material?
Those items were not processed in the criminalistics unit for any type of biological, meaning they would not tested for blood, semen, saliva, or a skin cell collection.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part that you...
Or a skin cell collection.
Now turning and changing topics, there was a T-shirt and a hoodie of the decedent. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And are you okay with my parlance of T-shirt, the yellow or orange T-shirt on the one hand, and then the gray hoodie sweatshirt? Is that an acceptable parlance for you?
Yes.
So with regard to those two items, is it correct that what's on the left is the right sleeve of what we refer to as the hoodie, and on the right is what color would you like to call that T-shirt?
Orange, please.
All right, so the orange T-shirt. Is that what we're looking at up on the screen?
Yes, so it's the right sleeve of the gray hoodie and the back of the orange T-shirt.
Thank you. Am I correct that you included a handwritten note on your report that you found, quote, debris from each of these two items or from these two items collectively?
I don't handwrite notes on my report, so I'm just confused about where you're asking that.
Okay, I'll ask a different question. Hopefully it will be clear. Did you find debris on these articles of clothing?
Yes, I took scrapings from each of these items of clothing and combined the debris. Yes.
With regard to scrapings, can you describe how the term scrapings relates to these two items that are on the screen?
Yes. Scraping is the mechanism I use to remove any debris that was remaining on both the sweatshirt and the T-shirt. I held each up over my lab bench. I took a long metal spatula and scraped any debris that was on these items into a small glassine packet.
Is it correct that you do not know where the debris came from specifically, other than it came from one or both of these two items?
Yes, that's correct.
So the debris could be from just the hoodie, it could be just from the T-shirt, or it could be a combination of the both?
Yes, the items were packaged together, so they were already commingled. So there was no way for me to determine which debris came from which item, and it would be misleading to label them as such, so I combined them.
Exactly where my next point was going to go to, thank you. And my next questions. So what if anything, were these two items contained in when you got them?
They were contained in a brown paper bag, and they may have been contained in a larger box, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
So when you got them and you saw them for the first time, using your term, they were commingled together, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And was there any debris in the bottom of the bag?
There may have been. When I examine something on my bench, I also shake out the bag to ensure that nothing is left behind and that everything is examined and accounted for.
Now, am I also correct that there is no description of the actual debris that you found? For example, you didn't specify whether it was little fibers, little hair, little pieces of this or that. Do I have that correct?
Correct. I did not do any examination on it. I just packaged it.
And therefore, you didn't note whether any of the debris was a plastic or a plasticine nature, correct?
Correct. That would not be part of my analysis.
And there was no marker put on any part of the debris that was recovered. Is that also correct?
I labeled the debris with an item number. I'm not sure what you mean by marker, if that's what you mean.
Parts of debris, in other words, there wasn't separate identification or markers for separate pieces of debris.
No, I did not separate out the debris.
There was no photograph taken of the debris?
Not by me, no.
Do you have knowledge of whether there was a photograph taken of the debris by anybody?
I do not.
So you have, as you sit here today, you have no knowledge that there's a photograph of the debris.
That's correct. I do not.
When you received the hoodie and the T-shirt, they came in together, commingled with some debris at the bottom in an evidence bag. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if there was debris at the bottom of the bag. What I can say is that there was debris on the items, and I did shake out the bag. I don't have a memory of anything coming out of the bag. I don't know.
So there could have been debris at the bottom of the bag when you shook it out, you just don't recall.
Yes, correct.
If we could, Your Honor, please have Exhibit 154 already in evidence published. Let's keep it there for a moment, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Wolk for you to zoom in. Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize this generally, and then I'm going to have it zoom in so you can read it, as an evidence bag?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Wolk, could you please zoom in, starting from the top, so that Ms. Hartnett can fairly read this? And if you could, Ms. Hartnett, just take a moment to read it, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, but I want you to have a fair opportunity to read it. Let me know when you're done.
Okay.
And if we can then scroll down, Mr. Wolk, so that Ms. Hartnett can fairly read the rest of what's on there.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, so is this the evidence bag that the T-shirt and the hoodie were in when you received those items?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
You see the name of collected by someone there. Can you read who that states it was collected by?
Yes.
And state what that is.
It says TPR Proctor.
And are you able to conclude what the TPR stands for?
Generally, we use that to abbreviate trooper.
Right. So that is former Trooper Proctor that it says collected by, correct?
That is what's written on the bag, yes.
And the date of the collection, if we can just, Mr. Wolk, just focus in on that. Thank you. The date of the collection is January 29th, 2022, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Is it a fair conclusion from this evidence bag and your experience on the matter to conclude that former Trooper Proctor was the person who collected the evidence and put it in the bag?
I have no knowledge of who actually collected and put in the bag. I can only read what I see on the monitor.
In terms of, if we could, Mr. Wolk, please take that down and put back up the side-to-side images and depictions of the T-shirt and the hoodie. Do you know the journey, if you will, of those two items before you received them?
No, I do not.
The debris that you ultimately saw on the hoodie and the T-shirt, and that which may or may not have also been additionally in the bag, do you know where that debris would have been picked up from?
No, I don't know the source of the debris.
And you were not provided with information as to the potential source of that debris, correct?
No.
Were you aware of whether or not the debris, whether those items had been on the floor of an ambulance or a floor of a hospital?
No, I did not have any information like that.
Is it important to maintain the sanitary condition of evidence generally to avoid contamination?
We do our best to avoid contamination once we receive items into evidence, yes.
And what are some of the protocols that are used to avoid contamination of evidence?
Generally, wearing gloves, putting items in packaging, bleaching any materials or utensils that we're going to use, or using disposable materials, sterile materials when possible or necessary. We also wear lab coats when processing evidence.
Is another protocol or technique to separate out pieces of evidence to prevent cross-contamination?
Sometimes we will separate pieces of evidence. If the items are already mixed in with each other, then the items can be kept together.
Do you know the chain of custody of either the hoodie or the t-shirt?
I only have record of the chain of custody from when it was delivered to the lab.
So before any delivery to the lab, you do not have knowledge of the chain of custody of either of those two items?
No, I just know which detective unit dropped the items off.
And which detective unit was that?
Norfolk Detective Unit.
I want to sort of speciate, if you will, separate out the evidence that you have talked about so far so that it's clear what you submitted and what may have been submitted by others to the lab. Do you understand that concept generally?
Yes.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is to give categories, and if you would be kind enough to say, I submitted it by some other person, that would be helpful. Any items that were collected from the vehicle, who submitted those to the lab or brought them to the lab?
I did.
The swabs from the red Solo cups.
I submitted the swabs.
The drinking glass that you were presented with at Canton PD.
I submitted that item.
The two clothing items that we just saw on the screen, the hoodie and the t-shirt.
Those were submitted by the Norfolk Detective Unit.
Were there also any fingernails that were part of the investigation and that you had knowledge of?
Yes.
Describe what those were, please.
Fingernails may be collected at the medical examiner's office, and they're clippings from the top of the fingernails of the victim.
And were those submitted to the lab?
Yes.
And by whom?
By the Norfolk Detective Unit.
And the phrase known blood standards, are you familiar with that phrase?
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors, please, what that means?
A known blood standard is a sample of blood that is collected from an identified person.
And which person were those known blood standards related to your knowledge in this matter?
We received a tube of blood that was identified as belonging to John O'Keefe.
And with regard to the fingernails and the known blood standards, who submitted those to the lab?
The Norfolk County Detective Unit.
So am I correct to conclude that for those items that you submitted to the lab, you knew sort of their journey, if you will, but that those items that were submitted by, I think you referred to as Norfolk County, that was your parlance?
Yes, correct.
You don't have knowledge about those other than that they were submitted by them?
Prior to them arriving at the lab, correct. I have no knowledge of where they were stored or anything like that before that.
And no knowledge of those items not submitted by you would include no knowledge of the chain of custody of those items, correct?
No knowledge prior to them being received into the lab. That is correct.
Your Honor, if I may have a moment, please. It'll probably be 30 to 45 seconds. Thank you. Bear with me, please. So the questions I have for Ms. Hartnett at this time, thank you for answering my questions, Ms. Hartnett.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Brennan, any redirect?
Yes.
You mentioned that you had an opportunity to observe a paper bag that had red Solo cups in it,
Yes, that's correct.
and the red Solo cups had a coloring of red in the cups.
Yes.
You'd never seen blood preserved in cups like that before?
Objection, Your Honor.
To the form. Sustained.
Had you ever seen blood stored in cups like that before?
No.
Do you know the circumstances of storing that blood?
Can you rephrase that question, please?
When the blood was stored in the cups, do you know the circumstances?
Sorry, Mr. President.
Your Honor, objection. Can we have a sidebar, please? It's important.
Okay?
Sidebar.
The coloring in those cups, do you know firsthand what that comprised of, what the item was?
Are you asking me if I knew what the contents specifically of the cup
Yes.
were? No, I did not.
And so the red cups with the red spots stored in them, do you know the circumstances surrounding the effort made to try to preserve that evidence?
Can you just be more specific in what you mean by circumstances?
Sure. Do you know where those red cups came from?
I was told they were collected from the scene. I don't have firsthand knowledge of the collection.
And you weren't at the scene that morning, were you?
No, I was not.
Do you know that what the circumstances or the challenges were that morning?
No, I'm not aware.
You said that you respond to active scenes and sometimes, like in this case, after the event happens?
Yes, that's correct.
Is there a difference when you're at an active scene as opposed to when you arrive at a scene that is past the event?
I would say multiple units are working at the same time, attempting to document, preserve, and collect evidence.
You were asked a few questions about the top back of the Lexus SUV.
Yes, that's correct.
When you were first asked the question, you were asked if you had studied that area, and you said you didn't recall if you looked at that area.
I did look at the area. I looked over the entire vehicle, but I didn't know anything specific in that area, no.
When you say you looked over the entire vehicle, did you look over the back of the vehicle as well?
Yes, the only part I did not look at was the roof of the vehicle.
Did you study all sides equally? Did you spend time with the entire vehicle?
I believe I made an effort, yes, to look at the entire vehicle.
When you studied the back of the vehicle, not the right side or left side, the back, middle, did you find any hair?
I did not note any hair, no.
Did you find any scratches?
The only scratches I noted were ones that I had spoken of previously on the right.
When you looked at the left side of that Lexus, did you find any dents or scratches?
Nothing that I noted, no.
Did you find any hair on that side of the car?
Not that I noted, no.
Did you find any dents, scratches, or hair anywhere but on other than the right side quarter of that Lexus?
I did not note any. I also did not examine the interior of the vehicle.
You said that you removed the hair. What do you do after you remove the hair?
The hair is placed into a small glassine envelope, then placed into a larger manila envelope, and then I signed and sealed it, gave it the appropriate case number and item number, and then secured it in our storage room.
Can that hair be further tested?
Yes.
Is that something you would do or a different person?
I don't perform testing on the hair. I performed a microscopic examination of it, and then additional testing can be performed by a different unit.
Let me ask you some questions about where you found the hair. You saw the two different angle pictures yesterday that you described?
Yes, I saw 2 pictures of that hair yesterday.
You were also shown some video where the car had snow and ice on it. Is water a conduit? Does water ever act as an adhesive?
Objection, Your Honor.
Watch the form of the question.
Okay. Why don't I show you a similar video that you were shown yesterday, but we've clarified it so it's more clear. I'm going to ask you to take a look at video 125. Can we stop that, please? Can you see that's 5:51:54 p.m. on 1/29/22?
Yes.
When you first saw this vehicle, it didn't have that snow on the right back near that taillight, did it?
Objection, Your Honor.
Ask it differently, Mr. Brennan.
When you saw this vehicle for the first time, did it have that snow packed into the back right of the car?
No, to the best of my recollection, there was no snow on the vehicle when I saw it.
And the hair where you found it, you see the red back taillight, the piece of red that's showing?
I do see that, yes.
In reference or relative to that red, was the hair to the right, left, below?
I don't recall at this time.
Okay. Do you see the ice or snow on the right side quarter panel of that Lexus?
I don't see it on the quarter panel. I'm not sure what you're speaking of.
If we could move that video forward, please, to 702. And then to 749, please. Stop. Go forward just a little bit, please. Stop. There's still remnants of snow. Did it look like that when you first saw it?
No, I believe I did not see any snow on the vehicle when I saw it.
If you could fast forward, please. Thank you. You were asked if you had any information about when damage occurred,
Yes, that's correct.
and you offered us you don't have no idea, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
No, I do not know when the damage occurred.
You were asked whether or not damage existed on that car prior to that day, prior to January 29th, 2022. You remember that question?
Yes.
Did you know there are ring videos of that car from January 28th, 2022?
No.
I want to show you some photos and ask you a few questions. Do you remember what that's a picture of or a photograph of?
Yes.
What is it?
That is a tear that was on the right sleeve of the gray sweatshirt.
The threads coming from the side of that hole?
Yes.
Those threads, could you pull those threads and pull them out by hand if you wanted to?
Can you repeat that question?
If you pulled on those threads, could you pull thread from that hole if you wanted to?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
I don't know. I didn't attempt to pull at them at all.
Did you examine them to see if they were woven or loose, those threads?
Yes.
Okay, and what were they?
They were loose. The fibers had started to separate up from the shirt. Separate and weave. I don't want to say they were separated from the shirt completely. The weave was starting to separate.
If we could have photograph 57. Are those the red cups that you saw?
Yes.
And what color is the fluid inside?
I noted there was red-brown stains inside.
Okay, and do you see that white object, the rag or the paper towel?
Objection, Your Honor. Go.
Yes, sustained.
We're asked about who had custody of items. You only have custody of items once you receive them, right?
Yes, that's correct.
If somebody had access to that rag and dipped it in those cups and then smeared it on the taillight and you went and tested, would you potentially be able to find that red liquid on the taillight?
Objection, Your Honor.
It's sustained.
If strands of cloth were pulled from those clothing and placed in the taillight area, would you know when they were placed?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
When you get to a scene and you examine an area, if you don't see it firsthand, is there any way you can date when items are placed on an object?
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time, please?
Sure. When you look at an area like a taillight, if you found blood or cloth or another item in that area, would you know when it was placed in that area?
I think there are really just too many variables to say either way.
And if an item like blood or cloth was placed in that area, is that something you would be looking for in your examination?
In which area?
Say the taillight, for example.
If there was an object placed in the taillight, would I be looking for that? I'd be looking for any item evidence. I'm not specifically looking for anything. I'm just looking for anything that would potentially be evidence.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Anything further, Mr. Lessen?
Briefly, Your Honor. If we could, Your Honor, have 147C republished. Do you recall Mr. Brennan asking you just moments ago a question about this depiction?
Yes.
And to be clear, this is the right sleeve of the gray hoodie, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You didn't perform any analysis of this area of the right hoodie, did you?
I performed damage analysis on each of those tears on the sleeve.
Right, but you didn't perform an analysis as to the source of that item, what it could be, correct?
Can you rephrase that question, please?
Sure. You didn't do any analysis of what could have caused that hole in the sweatshirt, did you?
No, I did not.
No further questions. Again, thank you for answering my question.
Your
All right,
Honor.
Ms. Hartnett, you are all set.
I wanted to correct something from the record yesterday. I wasn't sure when was appropriate to do that.
Okay. Do you recall which lawyer asked you the question?
Yes, Mr. Lessie asked me the question.
Your Honor, are we going to proceed along with that?
So why don't I see you outside?
Thank you.
Sidebar.
So, Ms. Harnett, I am going to let you step down because questions from both sides are completed.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you, though.